Imagine for a moment that every thought you have, every choice you make, and every belief you carry has already been influenced by forces you never even notice. This is not a modern invention. It is an ancient game, and one of its most brilliant architects was Niccolò Machiavelli. He understood something most people ignore, that the true battlefield is not fought with swords or guns, but in the silent corners of the human mind. His secret playbook was not about armies or empires alone. It was about influence, manipulation, and the subtle art of control. This is the silent war for your mind. Machiavelli lived in Renaissance Italy, an era of shifting alliances, powerful families, betrayals, and secret deals. He observed the way rulers behaved, not as they pretended to be, but as they truly were. He saw hypocrisy, ambition, fear, and the raw desire for survival. From these observations, he built a philosophy that revealed how power actually works. His writings became a manual for rulers, but what he uncovered applies not just to princes and kings, it applies to everyone. Because every society, every system, and even every personal relationship is shaped by this silent struggle for influence. He warned that people are not simply rational creatures. They are ruled by fear, desire, and appearances. If you want to lead, if you want to survive, you must not only understand this truth, but use it. Machiavelli insisted that to control others, you must control perception. Appearances often matter more than reality. A leader does not need to be virtuous, he only needs to appear virtuous. Mercy, honesty, and generosity, these may all be masks. The key is not to actually embody them, but to project them when it benefits you. This is the first rule of the silent war for your mind. What you believe about a leader is often more important than who that leader really is. Think of how this applies today. Modern politics, advertising, media, they all rely on Machiavelli's insight. Leaders craft images that stir hope or fear. Corporations design campaigns that make you feel connected to a brand. Social media influencers project perfection that hides imperfection. What you see is not the full reality. It is a carefully chosen mask. And when you accept the mask as truth, you surrender a part of your mind. But Machiavelli did not stop at appearances. He also revealed how fear can be a more powerful tool than love. People may admire you if they love you, but admiration is fickle. Fear, on the other hand, binds people with chains they cannot break. Yet, he warned, a ruler must never be hated. Fear is effective, hatred is dangerous. The balance between the two is delicate. Make yourself feared enough to command respect, but not so feared that people dream of your destruction. This balance is still at the heart of modern power, whether in governments, workplaces, or even personal relationships. Now consider the silent techniques used to wage war for your mind. Repetition is one. Say a lie enough times, and it becomes the truth in the minds of many. Control the flow of information, and you control what people believe. Distract them with spectacles, and they will forget to question the hand that pulls the strings. Divide them against one another, and they will never unite against you. Machiavelli would recognize all of these as tools in the playbook, tools that operate quietly but effectively in shaping behavior. The brilliance of Machiavelli's insights is that they reveal power as performance. He wrote that it is not necessary for a ruler to possess all the virtues, but it is absolutely necessary to appear to have them. Think about that. Leaders don't need to be good, they only need to look good. And in that illusion lies control. If you believe someone is just merciful and wise, you will follow them even if, in secret, they are corrupt, cruel, and cunning. The war for your mind is not waged with open force, it is waged with appearances, with stories, with carefully crafted illusions. But there is a darker side to this. If power can be gained by deception, then who can you really trust? If appearances can be faked, how do you know what is real? Machiavelli forces us to confront this uncomfortable question. Are we free, or are we simply living inside narratives designed by others? The silent war for your mind is dangerous precisely because it is invisible. When manipulation works, you don't notice it. When persuasion succeeds, you think you made the choice yourself. Machiavelli also understood the importance of adaptability. A leader who cannot change with the times will be destroyed by them. Fortune favors those who are bold, those who seize opportunities when they arise. He compared fortune to a woman who must be mastered with courage and aggression. In the silent war, this means that those who adapt to new strategies of influence, new technologies of persuasion, and new forms of control will always dominate. Just as Renaissance rulers exploited fear and appearances, modern leaders exploit algorithms, data, and psychology. The tools change, but the game remains the same. To understand Machiavelli's playbook is to understand human nature stripped of its comforting illusions. He saw people as self-interested, easily deceived, and prone to follow strength over weakness. His genius was not in inventing these truths, but in daring to write them down. For centuries, rulers and leaders had practiced deception, manipulation, and control, but no one had admitted it so openly. Machiavelli did. He shattered the illusion that politics was about morality. He declared that politics was about power, and morality was only a tool in its service. This is why his work has been both feared and admired. Some see him as a villain who encouraged ruthlessness. Others see him as a realist who simply revealed the truth. But whichever interpretation you choose, you cannot deny that his insights are still alive today. They live in the way corporations market products, the way politicians craft speeches, and the way influencers manipulate attention. Every time you scroll through a feed, every time you watch a commercial, every time you cast a vote, you are participating in the silent war for your mind. Now let us return to the question, what does this mean for you? If others are playing this game, are you simply a pawn? Or can you learn the rules of the playbook and use them to protect yourself? Perhaps even to gain your own influence? Machiavelli's advice was not just for princes. It was for anyone willing to see the world as it really is. He would tell you, do not be naive. Do not assume others will play fair. Do not mistake appearances for truth. Instead, observe, question, and adapt. The silent war cannot be avoided, but it can be understood. The first step is awareness. Once you know that appearances can deceive, you will look deeper. When we look at history, we often think of it as a record of battles, empires, inventions, and kings. But Machiavelli forces us to ask, who was really in control? Was it the soldiers who fought wars, or was it the leaders who shaped belief? The truth is that wars end, kings die, and empires crumble, but the battle for the human mind never stops. It shifts shape with each generation. In Machiavelli's day, rulers used religion, ritual, and theater to maintain power. Today, leaders use algorithms, media, and psychological tricks. The silent war is timeless. Only the weapons change. Take the example of propaganda. Edward Bernays, often called the father of modern public relations, openly admitted that his work was built on the foundations of Machiavelli. He understood that if you could shape the way people thought, you didn't need to force them, they would willingly comply. Governments used his methods to sell wars. Corporations used them to sell products people didn't even need. What Machiavelli whispered in the courts of Renaissance Italy became a global industry centuries later. That is the reach of the silent war. Now imagine the average person scrolling on their phone. They think they are choosing freely, liking posts, sharing ideas, consuming content. But beneath the surface, every click is analyzed. Every weakness of the human mind is exploited. Fear, outrage, desire, belonging, all are manipulated. What Machiavelli understood about rulers, tech companies now understand about users. The battlefield has moved from palaces and parliaments into your pocket. And this, too, is part of the silent war for your mind. Machiavelli also spoke about fortune, what he called fortuna. He believed that fortune was like a river, sometimes calm, sometimes flooding, and that the wise leader prepares for both. He must build dams and barriers when he can, but he must also be bold enough to seize opportunity when it appears. In modern terms, this is about timing. Influence is not only about what message you deliver, but when you deliver it. Release a story too early and no one cares. Release it at the right moment and the world cannot ignore it. This is why timing campaigns, media releases, and even personal decisions are part of the Machiavellian playbook. Consider the role of distraction. Bread and circuses kept the Roman people from revolting. Today, endless entertainment, gossip, and viral trends keep modern people too busy to question deeper truths. Machiavelli would have admired this tactic. He knew that if people are distracted, they are easier to control. They feel engaged, but in reality, they are being pacified. The silent war thrives on distraction, because attention is the most valuable resource of all. Let us not forget the power of division. Machiavelli argued that rulers benefit when their enemies are fragmented. A united opposition is dangerous, but a divided one is powerless. Look at how often societies are split into competing groups, left against right, young against old, rich against poor. While people fight among themselves, the true power holders remain untouched. This is not an accident. Division is one of the oldest strategies in the silent war, and it remains just as effective now as it was 500 years ago. Another tactic Machiavelli highlighted is the use of scapegoats. When a ruler makes a mistake, he must quickly shift the blame onto others. If taxes are high, blame the advisors. If war fails, blame the generals. The key is that the ruler's own image remains untarnished. Think about how modern leaders, companies, or even celebrities handle scandals. Rarely do they admit fault. Instead, they redirect attention, create a new controversy, or sacrifice someone less important. This is pure Machiavelli at work, survival through the careful management of blame. But the most unsettling part of Machiavelli's wisdom is this: he believed most people do not want the truth. They want stories, they want comfort, they want illusions that make life easier to accept. This is why illusions are so powerful. A society that demands illusions will always reward those who can supply them. Leaders who tell comforting lies often succeed more than leaders who tell uncomfortable truths. And once people become addicted to illusions, they will defend them as if they were reality itself. Yet there is hope. If the silent war for your mind is fought with illusions, then the first weapon of defense is awareness. When you know how stories are constructed, you can step back and analyze them. When you know how fear is manufactured, you can ask who benefits from it. When you know that appearances can be manipulated, you can demand evidence instead of relying on images. Machiavelli may have revealed how power works, but by studying his playbook, you also gain the ability to resist it. So the lesson is not only that others are fighting to control your mind, it is also that you can learn to take back control. You can learn to recognize the tricks of fear, the masks of virtue, the illusions of appearance. You can stop being a pawn in someone else's game and begin playing your own. And in doing so, you do not just survive the silent war. You begin to master it. And perhaps this was Machiavelli's true gift. Not to corrupt us, but to awaken us. Not to make us more ruthless, but to make us more realistic. He wanted us to see the world as it is, not as we wish it to be, because only then can we navigate it with wisdom. His playbook may be dangerous in the wrong hands, but in your hands, it can be a shield as well as a sword. The silent war for your mind is not ending anytime soon. It did not begin with Machiavelli, and it will not end with social media. It will continue as long as humans desire power, as long as people seek to influence others, and as long as the human mind remains vulnerable to stories, appearances, and fear. The question you must ask yourself is simple. Will you be ruled by illusions, or will you see through them? Will you be a pawn, or will you become a player? Machiavelli once wrote that men are driven by two forces above all, fear and desire. These two levers, he believed, can move entire nations. When you understand this, you begin to see the silent war not only in the grand stage of politics, but also in the everyday struggles of ordinary people. Think of how advertisers operate. They appeal to your desire for status, beauty, or success. At the same time, they whisper fears into your ear: fear of being left behind, fear of being judged, fear of missing out. The same dual strategy Machiavelli observed in Renaissance courts is alive in every commercial, every political campaign, every piece of media you consume. But Machiavelli did not only describe manipulation, he described survival. He saw that those who were naive, those who relied too much on virtue, were often destroyed. The rulers who lasted were the ones who learned how to appear merciful when it suited them and how to act ruthlessly when it was necessary. He wrote that a prince must learn how not to be good and to use goodness only when it served his interests. This idea shocks people even today. We want to believe that the world rewards honesty, kindness, and fairness. But Machiavelli's brutal honesty forces us to confront the fact that survival often belongs to those who can balance morality with cunning. Take the example of Cesare Borgia, a man Machiavelli admired. Borgia was ruthless, cunning, and ambitious. He eliminated rivals not through open battle alone, but through deception and careful strategy. At one point, he invited his enemies to a meeting, promising peace, and then had them executed. To modern ears, this sounds monstrous. But to Machiavelli, it was the essence of effective leadership, the ability to eliminate threats before they could eliminate you. He argued that cruelty, if used swiftly and decisively, could bring stability and peace in the long run. In other words, one act of controlled brutality could prevent endless chaos. The silent war, therefore, is not only about controlling the mind of the masses, but also about ensuring survival in a ruthless world. Now let us shift forward to the present. How often do we see leaders today who act virtuous in front of the cameras, while in private they make deals that betray those values? How often do we see corporations speak about responsibility and care, while exploiting workers and manipulating customers? This is Machiavelli's world, alive and well. The difference is that now the stage is global, and the audience is billions of people connected by screens. Yet the same rules apply. Appear virtuous, control fear, manipulate desire, eliminate rivals, and adapt to fortune. Another essential principle Machiavelli described is the idea that loyalty is temporary. People will support you as long as you serve their interests. The moment you stop, they will turn against you. This is why he advised rulers never to rely completely on loyalty. Instead, build systems of control that do not depend on the fickle nature of human hearts. Consider how modern politics runs on polling and data. Leaders constantly measure public opinion, not because they want to serve people selflessly, but because they want to ensure their survival. The silent war is fought not only with persuasion, but with information. Whoever controls the flow of information controls the battlefield. Machiavelli also warned about complacency. He argued that fortune punishes those who hesitate. In times of change, boldness often triumphs over caution. Look at how history rewards innovators and risk-takers. The rulers who dared to seize opportunities often outlasted those who played it safe. Today, this same principle applies to technology, business, and culture. Companies that hesitate vanish, while those that take bold, sometimes ruthless steps dominate industries. Machiavelli's lesson remains the same. Fortune favors the bold, and in the silent war for your mind, hesitation is defeat. Let's not ignore the personal side of this playbook. The silent war is not only waged on the level of nations or corporations. It exists in families, workplaces, friendships, and relationships. People use appearances to gain approval, fear to maintain control, and manipulation to get what they want. Think about how often people hide their true feelings. How often they project a false image to gain advantage. How often they avoid direct confrontation but win through subtle influence. Every person, knowingly or unknowingly, is engaged in the silent war. This is what makes Machiavelli's work so disturbing yet so essential. He holds up a mirror to humanity, showing us that beneath the surface of civility lies an endless contest for power and influence. He forces us to admit that the noble speeches we hear are often masks, that the promises of leaders are often tools, and that even in our personal lives honesty is not always rewarded. This is not cynicism, it is realism. And once you see the world this way, you can never unsee it. But there is another side to this. Awareness can become empowerment. If you know that appearances can be manipulated, you will not fall for every image you see. If you know that fear is being used as a weapon, you will resist being ruled by it. If you know that desire is being exploited, you will ask yourself what you truly want, instead of what others want you to want. In this way, Machiavelli's playbook is not only a manual for rulers, but also a shield for the ruled. By studying it, you learn not only how to influence others, but how to protect yourself from influence. The silent war for your mind is, at its core, a battle for freedom. True freedom is not only the ability to act, but the ability to think clearly. If your thoughts are manipulated, your freedom is an illusion. This is why Machiavelli remains relevant. He teaches us that power is not always obvious, that control is not always visible, and that the most dangerous chains are the ones we do not notice. So, as you walk through the world, ask yourself, who benefits from what I believe? Who gains power from my fear? Who profits from my desire? These questions are the beginning of resistance, because once you ask them, you step outside the illusion. You begin to see the game as it is played. And once you see the game, you are no longer a pawn. You are something much more dangerous. You are a player. And perhaps that is the true secret of Machiavelli's Playbook. It is not only a guide for rulers. It is an invitation to awareness. It is a challenge to wake up from illusions. It is a reminder that while the war for your mind is silent, it is not unwinnable. You can learn, you can adapt, you can resist, and if you are bold enough, you can even lead. Because in the end, the war for your mind is not just about others trying to control you. It is about whether you will learn to control yourself. And the greatest victory, as Machiavelli might whisper to us across the centuries, is not over enemies, not over rivals, but over the weakness and blindness within our own hearts.